So in this episode, the Discovery has to get the sphere data to the future where Control can't reach it. Michael has to set up the red signals so the Discovery goes to all of the places it needs to go. There seems to be a kind of causal loop paradox going on with this. The signals showed up and gave Michael the idea to put them there, but the reason they were there in the first place is because Michael saw them and that gave her the idea to set them up. Is there a timeline in which the Discovery crew loses and Michael thinks up all of these places she could lead the Discovery to set up a scenario in which they win? I guess we'll never know. There are a few unanswered questions with this finale. One is that Leland said that he saw Burnham's mom dead. That obviously wasn't the case, so I guess we're to assume he was lying? There were 7 red signals that appeared, then disappeared, then reappeared one at a time. We know that Michael made them appear one at a time, but what about the initial appearance? That seems unexplained. The 7th signal was to let Spock know that she got to the future okay, so I guess the time suit still works. They say that Georgia will be in a Section 31 series, despite the fact that she went to the future with the Discovery, so maybe they'll use the suit to get her back to the 23rd century. Spock lies to cover the Discovery up, which Vulcans aren't supposed to be able to do, but I guess since he's half human, that gives him some leeway. Usually when Spock is caught in a lie, he says, "I actually only implied," or "I only exaggerated." At the end of this episode, however, he just straight up lies and says the Discovery blew up. Also, everyone is now supposed to keep the Discovery and her crew a secret. That's why Spock never mentions Michael Burnham again. It's probably why when Spock is asked if there's ever been a mutiny on a starship in the Tholian web, he says not on Starfleet records, which is technically true. Burnham's record has been deleted. It's probably why Section 31 is a lot more secret now. It's why we haven't heard about the spore drive ever again. It seems as though this season was written with the expectation that it wouldn't get a 3rd season, because it seems to wrap the whole show up. It is being renewed for a 3rd season, so I have no idea what they're going to do. I guess it's going to involve adventures over 1,000 years in the future. Maybe it will involve some future version of the Federation and Starfleet. The Short Treks episode, Calypso, that shows the Discovery unoccupied, established that it had been adrift for 1,000 years. If it went forward in time 1,000 years or so, and it's still occupied at that point in time, then the fact that it was adrift for 1,000 years could mean that Calypso takes place at least 2,000 years after the 23rd century. One of the ideas that was rumored to be considered about Discovery was that it would be kind of an anthology series that would take place in various different eras. Maybe that's what they're considering doing from now on. Maybe the Discovery will use its spore drive and time travel abilities to jump from era to era and intervene at various points in Starfleet history. That could have a lot of potential. That could be a great idea. Maybe they'll be on the Picard show. Maybe they'll go back in time, grab Gary Seven's ancestors, and take them to whatever planet it is that they end up on. Maybe they'll accidentally create the Borg. But maybe the writers won't want to deal with having to stay consistent with canon and will avoid going backward in the timeline ever again. I know a lot of folks didn't like the little repair droids, or were they dudes in repair suits? But I loved them. I thought they were adorable. I thought the scene in which Spock is telling Michael how helpful she was to him as a big sister was a little silly. Not the speech itself, but rather the fact that it's one of many speeches on this show that were given in the middle of an emergency in which the characters are supposedly out of time or are in a hurry. I liked that Culber ended up tending to Stamets's wounds and that he's decided to stick with him as they go several hundred years in the future. I also loved how when the Discovery entered the time wormhole, there was this smearing effect that was a great throwback to that scene in the motion picture. On the whole, I really liked this season. It wasn't as fun as the Mirror Universe stuff in the first season, but it was more consistently good than the first season. The first season spent too much time on Klingon stuff. Pike was great from start to finish. I wish there had been more number 1 though. Oh, and it seems that her name is officially Una. That's the name she was given in several of the novels, but those don't count as canon. It didn't become canon until Pike called her that on screen. Also, I love that they had this thing on the bridge. That was a nice touch.